Okay, so welcome to day one of 28 of doing the book of Matthew. 28 days because Matthew has 28 chapters. We may ideally not be able to cover everything, but I believe we can cover quite a bit in that amount of time. The book of Matthew is it has a lot of things per se. And I would recommend this book for anyone that if you're newly saved and you're trying to find your way into how to read the Bible, where do I start from? I would totally recommend the Gospels and especially the book of Matthew. So let's just dive in. So today is Matthew 1, and I want to divide it into two portions, just like it's divided if you're using the NKJV Bible. So it has the two parts, the genealogy of Christ, and then the second part, Christ born of Mary. But even before we enter into it, I want to give a brief history or some few facts that I think would help us understand this book. One, Matthew was written by the Apostle Matthew, disciple. He used to be a tax collector and then converted and became a disciple of Christ. Somewhere in the stories, you'll see where he met Jesus while he was collecting taxes, and he said, Jesus told him, leave what you're doing and follow me, and that's what he did. Then, two, the book of Matthew is written, and the primary audience of this book is Jews. And that is something that matters a lot because it would help you understand the kind of language that is being used. It would help you understand some of the metaphors, a lot of things. And I'll give an example. If I'm writing a letter to my mom, trying to convince her about something A, and write a letter to a friend, trying to convince her about the same thing, letter A, and I write a letter to a stranger, trying to convince her of the same thing, A. The language I would use would be different, even though I'm trying to convince them of the same things. Because what can I say? For example, if I'm talking to my mom, our relationship matters. The kind of jokes that we have, the traditions in our family, the culture, how we see one another, how we are used to talking to one another, all that would influence what goes into what I write to her. I come to a friend. I would not write to a friend the way I would write to my mom. You might find for my mom, maybe I might use a bit more professional, not professional rather, but a bit more respectful language, and then I come and try and joke with my friends, and then you come and say maybe I'm writing to my boss, that language might be a bit more formal. And when I'm writing to a stranger, maybe I'm trying to it's open-ended kind of language because you don't know who you're talking to. So all that matters into trying to understand this book of Matthew. So because there are different things that goes into how we write to a different person, that includes a relationship, the cultures, the traditions, um, all those things matter. So it's very important that we understand the book of Matthew was primarily addressed to Jews. Yeah, because it would help even understand the kind of parables that were used, the language that was used, and all those things. So let's dive in. One, it starts with the genealogy of Jesus Christ. So the book of the genealogy of Jesus, sorry, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brother, and the list goes on. Begot who, begot this, begot that. And I always kept wondering what was the purpose of having all these this history told to us. Does it really matter that I know that Asa begot Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat begot Joram, Joram begot Uzziah? I never really comprehended. But I felt like it was boring. And when you read the other books in the Old Testament, the book of Chronicles does the same thing, the books of Kings does the same thing. And you're like, no, no. Most of the time when we read this part, we skip. But then when I came to realize that the book of Matthew was written to Jews and primarily Jews, it would make you understand. It's like, when your parents are trying to convince you that someone is your cousin and you're like, I don't know this person. I've never seen them in our family. You understand, I don't know them. And then he tries to give you the genealogy. My mom, my grandmother, and Sijui married who, and then who, and then that's how you're related. And you're like, so like the idea for you to believe that this person is your cousin, your mom has to give you like a history. So it's the same thing. So that's happening here. So they're trying to show the Jews. Matthew is trying to show the Jews that whoever we are talking about, Jesus, is someone that is directly descended from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and David, people that they had considered to be great men, and from whom it had been prophesied about in the previous books, that Jesus was gonna come through this line of David and was going to be born in Bethlehem. So it was necessary for him to mention this genealogy of Jesus Christ as a matter of attempting to convince that whoever we are talking about is not just some random person, but some person who was born according to the prophecy. Yeah. So that explains the genealogy of Jesus Christ. I'm sure there's a lot more explanation and facts that people can give, when it comes to it. Then we have Christ born of Mary. Here is like this is an interesting story. So it starts with Joseph. Joseph finds out about Mary being pregnant with a child, and Joseph wants to. Here we're gonna take three lessons. One, Joseph wants to divorce Mary quietly, and that thing stood out for me because it's such an honor. Because in today's society, where do you find breakups being quiet? Anytime you hear a marriage has ended, a breakup has ended, like the people go into podcasts, people go into, it's the first thing you do is to start telling people how that person was a bad person. And it's not it's bad enough that we tell our friends. People now go and advertise it on social media and do it on podcast and all those things, so you can imagine. But Joseph, I believe, for me, if I were someone was to ask me, I would say Joseph is the standard for how to break up with a person, given the fact that you are the one who was hurt. So Joseph was hurt. Joseph felt like Mary had done her wrong, and instead of wanting to, he had every reason to just, do her bad, do her dirty. He decided to put her out quietly, just to rescue her name. Like, if we all broke up like that, I wish I would have done the same way for some of my previous relationships. God knows I'm not any better in this. Then we have verse 21. Angel comes to Joseph, and he tells Joseph, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife. That which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And verse 21 is my emphasis here. And she will bring forth a son. You shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from sins. So the idea of Jesus coming unto earth is to save us from sin, not for us to save ourselves from sin and then come to him. So the logic that we normally have, this idea that runs around, manze, Satan has lied to us, that we need to be clean in order to come to Jesus. It's like we are trying to render him ineffective. Because now, if his work is to save people from their sins and you've come and you're clean, what's the purpose of you being in his presence? What can he do to help you? So if now that you've gotten saved, or anytime that you feel like you've been saved even for a while, you're still struggling with sin, there are one or two things that you feel are not going right in your life, or you're still struggling with, the idea is not to run from Christ and be perfect. The idea is to take that sin and take it to him so that he can save me from it. That's the work of Jesus Christ. So even if you get saved and you find that you're still falling again, you're in the right environment, because the only person that can help you is Jesus. So he's like, come, I've saved you. Let me help you now get out of sin completely. So don't run away from Jesus. But the third thing is that he says in verse 25, Joseph took, of course, Mary as his wife, and he did not know her till he had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. I'm like, why would the Bible go and tell us about Joseph not having sex with his wife? Like, right? Does the fact really matter? Is it? But I don't know. In my own opinion, I feel like the reason why this thing was stated is for us, if Joseph had slept with Mary, there would be doubt on whether Jesus Christ was born of the Holy Spirit. So the fact that Joseph did not sleep with her, it can be attested that I did not sleep with this lady. So if, for example, if now that Joseph has married and slept, you can come and say this baby was born early, 9 months and all those things, and this child is the child of Joseph biologically. But in this case, so that there's never any doubt that this one was conceived of the Holy Spirit, Joseph never slept with her. So it was necessary at this point, and now I understand why the Bible said it. But yes, that's Matthew 1 in a nutshell. Feel free to just discover more about this book of Matthew chapter 1. Let the Holy Spirit teach you. Blessings.